school children coming in, but a lot of people found it just easier to walk around all the alcoves that I've mentioned to you. So Andrew Carnegie, now you know all this because you've been doing this YouTube, but Andrew arrives in America at 12 years old. He has to work 12 hours days, 6 days a week as a bobbin boy and a boiler attendant. So he's actually gone to one of the mills that his father's whole business, because of the Industrial Revolution, he just lost his business because of the Industrial Revolution. So he's in America and he has to work at the age of 12. He's barely 12, he's barely got 4 years education. So he lives in this house along with his 2 aunties, their husbands, that's his uncles, and 4 children, and he's with his mother, and he's with his dad, and he's with his wee brother, Thomas. But his father died by the age of 48. His father went over to America when he was 40. But he was a broken man because he'd lost his business. He was a broken man because he couldn't do anything in America. He had known all his life being a weaver and he couldn't adjust to the other things. So the poor man died. That left Andrew at the age of 20 to be the head of the household. And while he was, from his years of working there for 2 years, he got a job working in the telegraph company, and he had this fabulous talent. Within 2 years he'd learned a Morse code, and by 16 he could do it all by ear. So all this, all this, you know, whatever this would be as a word, he knew as soon as he walked into the office exactly what that was. So he didn't need to put it down to dots and dashes, then transcribe it into letters, then put it onto a telegraph. He could just do. So he got the attention of this man, Thomas Scott.
Mr. Thomas Scott.
Yeah, so Thomas Scott thought Andrew was wonderful. He is fantastic. He absolutely loves Andrew. He's a superintendent in the railroad. He's Scottish, and so is this gentleman, that's Edgar Thompson, another man, and Andrew had been, they had just took them under their wings and looked after him, because his father had died at that point, so they were all very, very good with him. But Thomas Scott, he was the one that could see the talent in Andrew. So what he says to Andrew, that there's a company called Adams & Co, and that they're going to be using the railroad, because the railroad's gone through its own industrial revolution. They're going to lay 23,000 miles of railroad, and it's going to be all unified. It's all going to be the same track, because in America, when everybody was landing in America, they would make it any gauge, they would make the carriages any size. So what they wanted to do was to unify it and make it all the same. So all this happened through the railroad. Andrew works for him, but he tells Andrew to put money into a company that's going to float in the stock exchange. And Andrew his mother gets the house remortgaged, and with $600 they buy 10 shares, and that company today is American Express. It was Adams Express, and it went to American Express, and there's a connection with Pony Express as well. So all of that together. So that gave Andrew the money that he could then be with these 2 gentlemen and invest, and they told him how to invest. Civil War starts. Thomas Scott is put in charge of organising military transport for the Union. Over the next 4 years, he and Andrew worked together to move soldiers, weapons, fuel, animals along the Pennsylvania Railroad. So his major contribution to the war effort was laying track through Washington, setting up rail and telegraph lines in Northern Virginia, and he also seized the opportunity to make lucrative investments in coal, iron and oil. So he was getting all this taught to him by these gentlemen. He also had an introduction in the telegraph office, because stocks and shares would be coming in, as well as Mrs. Brown's had her baby. You know, all these. It was a telegraph office, so he could hear everything. And at that point, insider trading never existed. So you could do that, and nobody would know that you did it. So anyway, this is a big thing for Andrew. He doesn't want to go to war. He's been called up to go to war, so he doesn't go to war. He pays an Irishman $850 to fight in his place, and that was a common practice in America. It was a common practice here. It was a common practice, and that's what people did. So that is what he did. He gave that man the money, and the man came back from the war. So, good. So
Lucky.
anyway, enjoy the rest of here before the children come in.
Yeah.
So have a wee look at everything.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate.
Thank you.
Appreciate. Super mișto, doamnă, deci extraordinar. Nu... Super drăguț, a ținut murții să-mi povestească câteva chestii și câteva dintre ele la început le știam pentru că mă uitasem la documentar înainte să ajung aici. Am văzut vreo jumătate de oră, dar foarte, foarte mișto. După când au făcut drumurile și, de exemplu, podurile din America erau făcute din lemn, iar fratele lui Andrew, Tom, se ocupa de fier și oțel în America. Și s-a asociat cu el pentru că a avut viziunea că acestea vor fi înlocuite lemnul va fi înlocuit de fier și oțel. Toate podurile acelea. Uite, în 1901 Pierre Point Morgan a fost de acord să plătească $400 milioane pentru imperiul fierului Perl Carnegie. John Pierre Point Morgan. J.P. Morgan. 400 milioane la vremea, nici nu vreau să mă gândesc câți bani înseamnă acum. Dacă 20 de pounds înseamnă 2000, 40 de miliarde acum. Problems of the day.
So Andrew Carnegie is the man that this whole building was built for. And when you're with Jonathan, you're actually going to see the place where Andrew Carnegie was actually born. So that's why we call it the Birthplace Museum, because he was born just around the corner from here. So Jonathan is going to take half of you to go and see that and tell you some stories. And the other half of you will stay with me in here. And we're going to explore some more about Andrew Carnegie and also some very old objects that would have been around when Andrew Carnegie was a wee boy living in Dunfermline. Have a question?
When I was born here, I saw this like short thing from like the 50s, I think.
1850s, yes. We've got swords, we've got all sorts of things here. Talking about Mr. Carnegie's life. So he was born in Dunfermline, so because we all live in Dunfermline, we're very excited to talk about it. He is dead. He died over 100 years ago, but you will find out a little bit more about him from Church. So these are objects that Mr. Carnegie used to own that we like to display. So a couple of important things. If we hear the fire alarm, you're going to probably be with either me or with Jonathan. So we will just line up in a proper fashion, and then we'll walk out the door that you walked in, and across the car park there's a big green sign, and that's where we'll all join, and Ms Richard will then be able to check that nobody's left in the building. Okay? So that's fire. Did you see the toilets on the way past? So if you want to go to the toilets, ask one of the adults, and they will take you to the toilets. That's okay. We do have members of the public in here today. So that doesn't mean you're not allowed to make noise, you're not allowed to say things, but we certainly don't want to be running in corridors or up and down stairs or anything like that. So we've done fire, we've done toilets, we're going to split into two groups, and before we head upstairs, if you would like to dress the objects again, then we're able to do that as well. And you can either put it on and have your photos taken, and or you can put it on and enjoy the rest of your time with us. Waiting, we've got hats and waistcoats, aprons, and other ornaments. So if you're happy, I will give you 5 minutes to get yourself dressed up in one of these things, if you wish. No, just put it on to it, it's all fine. And you don't have to if you don't want to, but if you want to, I'm sure the teacher would quite happy to take the picture as well. So if you want to stand up and then go choose one, put something on, cover your heads. So the waistcoat, the hats, and the aprons, and the
Lovely. Thank you very much.
So what did you learn about Andrew in your YouTube? What did you learn? That you didn't know already, because I bet you've done a lot of...
So on YouTube I was just watching until the first one when you said about that he was taken by Mr. Thomas A. Scott and Mr. Henderson.
Yeah.
So and up until there, but from there I just saw it, which is, and it's the vibe that's inside.
Isn't it? Isn't it?
Yeah.
His wife was very clever in being, she got this land, she asked the trust if it was okay. She'd been given, it's a lovely wee bit, I'll show you this part. I actually kept it this morning because I read about it whenever I can. So I had picked this up, wait a minute till I try and find it. Here we go. If you go into the Andrew Carnegie Birthplace Museum, it tells you a wee bit about Andrew. So in 1895, his wife purchased the birthplace from William Templeman, that was the man who owned it, using a legacy bequeathed to her from her grandfather, that's what it was. And after the creation of Dunfermline Trust in 1903, so she and Andrew made this trust together. Louise asked the trustees to look after the cottage, and it was opened to the public in 1908. The visitor's book, which in the collection of the museum records Andrew's first visit to his home he had known as a small boy, and he put in the book, "First visit to my birthplace, the humble home of honest poverty, best heritage when one has a heroine for a mother." So, and then from there, there's a lot more. There's other, following her husband's death, she goes back to the trust and they allow her to build the museum hall. So it's wonderful, and even who the architect is who built it. So all these things were just lovely. Unfortunately, that went out of favour with people. They didn't come in to see that, they just went to the birthplace, and it was old-fashioned, it was neat and changed, it was run down a wee bit. So in 2008, it all got a great refurbishment, and it made a big difference to it. So this is a picture, I'll show you the picture actually. I'll show you here. Children about. I must show you this.
Slowly.
Show this lovely man here too.
Anyways,
This postcard represents outside that door when they opened up this museum, this part, and that's Andrew's wife, Louise. This is her daughter, or their daughter, Andrew's daughter. Andrew's dead at this point. This is 1928.
Okay.
That's her husband that she had married, but she got divorced. Had two of their 4 children, and this would have been local dignitaries and possibly people from the States that came to be here at the opening. So when you open up that door and you just see where they're actually under the archway, you don't see the archway because it's been cut off, but that's a cracking wee picture, isn't it, of them all, and that's Louise. So she's a very clever lady, because if she hadn't done it, Moody Street would be gone. This would be gone. That would be gone. It would have been just flattened. Nobody would have been bothered about whoever Andrew Carnegie was. He left when he was 12. This is, he's 60 now, or with that cottage. I mean, it would have probably still been a cottage for a wee bit longer. But as soon as somebody would have made an offer for this land, it would have been flattened with the rest of Moody Street, so quite glad it survived. The hallway is still to be seen, ladies. You've got 6 alcoves to look through there, so please enjoy. Start with America and